So now we're finally covering the more peripheral characters, ones who do have some bearing on the plot, but really don't have much meat on their bones or don't really pull any of the strings. Front and foremost are the members of Organization 13, and by a long shot I think these are the characters that got the short end of the stick when it came to introductions. Still, they have some bearing on the plot, and even though initial introductions left them a little half-baked personality-wise, they've steadily gotten more fleshed out as the series has continued. Organization 13, as in the original one introduced in Chain of Memories in Kingdom Hearts 2, is a collection of powerful nobodies assembled by Xehanort's nobody, Xemnas, with the express goal of summoning Kingdom Hearts. Because nobodies are just the body and soul of a person devoid of any heart, they have a natural crave to fill that heart-shaped hole, and Xemnas preys on that hunger to manipulate most of these members. Because I've covered Xemnas, Roxas, Axel, and Xion separately, there are only 10 members left to cover, and I'm going to try and cover them in the order of the ones that we have the least information to work with to the ones that are going to take far longer to cover because we have a lot of information to work with. Sadly, this means Luxord is front and foremost on my list, even though he's my favorite member of the organization. A smooth-talking British gambler, Luxord is one of the 2 members that we don't know the origins of and arguably know the least about. He's the 10th member to have been recruited, and his biggest contribution to the plot is investigating the cursed gold in Port Royale for application by the organization. Beyond that, he's probably one of the better boss fights in Kingdom Hearts 2 thanks to its creativity, but after that, he doesn't do anything other than talk, mildly set our protagonist back, and die. He is interesting when it comes to his outlook on life. Since he's a gambler, he's very blasé about the actual goals of the organization, resigning himself to the fact that he's a pawn, even though he seems to have some disdain over the fact that the lower-ranked organization members aren't privy to important information. He enjoys gambling in all games of chance, and seems to only really care about the next game he gets to play, even to the point that his comments can occasionally come off as dissent or treasonous. Demyx is the other character we don't know much about before he became a nobody, other than that he's the 9th nobody to join the organization. He doesn't really do much in these games beyond stealing a magic seal in Olympus Underworld and trying to goad Roxas out of Sora briefly. He also has one of the most annoying boss fights in the entire series. Seriously, run up to any Kingdom Hearts fan and yell, "Dance, water, dance!" and watch as everyone shudders with frustration. He's probably the most apathetic towards the organization, as he usually only cares about lazing around all day playing his sitar. That's really about it. He gets killed by Sora when he dances with water one too many times. Whether he and Luxord became whole again remains to be seen, though they are definitely present in Kingdom Hearts 3. Here's hoping we get a chance to learn who Mighty and Dorlu might be. Xaldin is the 3rd member of the organization and is the first that we'll be covering today that we know the actual name of. Originally called Dilan, he was one of Ansem the Wise's apprentices back in the heyday of Radiant Garden. He seemed to serve primarily as a guard for Ansem's castle and was even present when the Xehanort-possessed Terra was discovered in the city courtyard. Of course, when the 6 apprentices turn on Ansem the Wise in order to conduct more questionable, ultimately evil experiments, he becomes the nobody Xaldin. Xaldin takes the strict guard persona that Dilan had and cranks it up to 11, becoming almost sadistic thanks to his jealousy over not having a heart and being unable to feel emotion. Yeah, jealousy over not feeling emotions. Emotions like, jealousy and spite. I'm pretty sure everyone that cared about getting a heart in this organization is rock stupid, otherwise I don't think Xemnas would have been able to pull the wool over their eyes for very long. Xaldin's main interaction with the plot is at Beast's castle, where he attempts to manipulate Beast into becoming a powerful Heartless for Sora to kill. Ultimately, he's cornered and defeated by Sora. Lexaeus was once known as Alias, and was another of Ansem's glorified guard dogs, apprentices in charge of security. Unlike Dilan, he was of a more noble inclination, though he did match his partner in stoic confidence. Becoming the 5th member of the organization in the wake of the assistants dabbling in darkness, Lexaeus didn't really change beyond relaxing his moral centers, which, side note, anyone else questioning how good any of Ansem's apprentices could have been when they were openly experimenting on humans to produce Heartless? Seriously, they in the story act like they're good people, but what the hell happened that Dilan and Lexaeus were okay with kidnapping and medical torture? Hell, throw Ienzo in there too. Ansem was practically like a father to him, but we'll get to him in a bit. He served as one of the few genuinely loyal members of the organization at Castle Oblivion. Learning that these rebels were trying to make Sora a puppet to overthrow Xemnas, Lexaeus and his colleague Zexion decided to make a puppet of Riku in order to root out the traitors. This doesn't go well for Lexaeus, and he is eventually struck down by Riku. Zexion is the 6th member of the organization and probably one of the most intelligent. Born Ienzo, his parents died at an early age, leaving him in the care of Ansem the Wise, making him the youngest of the King Sage's assistants. After becoming a nobody, he served as one of the organization loyalists inside Castle Oblivion and in fact orchestrated the countermeasures taken against the rebel faction. Most of this involved manipulating Riku, but that only ends with Lexaeus dead and Riku alive to know too much, especially when Sora kills the traitors by sheer coincidence. He attempts to kill Riku himself using guile and trickery to do it, but Naminé interferes and Riku badly wounds Zexion in the process. When he retreated, he was met by Axel and a replica of Riku, which we'll touch on in just a minute. Axel has Zexion killed by the replica in order to further his friend Saix's ranking in the organization and to tie up loose ends at the castle, considering at that point Zexion was the only member from the castle crew left standing. Vexen was the number 4 in the organization and was its lead scientist. In his human life, he was called Evan and shared a close relationship with Ienzo, a bond forged over mutual interest in science. Aside from Ansem, he seems to be Ienzo's primary caretaker and seems grateful to Ventus when he rescues the boy from some unversed during the events of Birth by Sleep. After the assistants take a dive into darkness and Evan becomes Vexen, he takes on a crueler, more mad scientist-like tone. He heads research into replicating people and nobodies, the first one being Xion, who would serve as a backup for Roxas. After that proves successful, at least in the short term, he begins to try and perfect his work. This culminates in the work at Castle Oblivion, where he, Zexion, and Lexaeus work together in order to stop the rebel elements in the organization. Using data obtained in the battle with the real Riku, he creates a replica of the boy and sends it out against him. The replica loses, but Vexen still introduces it to the rebel faction as an option for dealing with Sora, hoping to use the absolute obedience of the clone to destroy Sora before the rebels can manipulate him. Unfortunately, this gets turned on its head when the rebels use Nominate to change the clone's memories to mirror those of the actual Riku's as well as Sora's in order to breed more confusion within Sora. After the clone fails multiple times to manipulate Sora, Vexen himself is dispatched to deal with Sora. However, Vexen is spiteful and leads Sora into memories tied to Roxas and begins explaining what's actually going on, both about Roxas existing as Sora's nobody and the rebels' plans to manipulate Sora. There's a brief fight between the two before the monologuing gets underway, but when it finally does, Vexen is struck down by Axel as a mean of keeping the replica program out of the hands of the rebels. Xaldin, Lexaeus, Zexion, and Vexen reformed into their human counterparts Dilan, Elias, Ienzo, and Evan back in Ansem's study alongside Lee, and they're currently still there. By the looks of things, they'll actually be helping out Sora and his gang in Kingdom Hearts 3, but I could be wrong. Larxene and Marluxia are interesting. Aside from Roxas and Xion, they are the quote-unquote youngest members of the organization, Marluxia being number 11 and Larxene being number 12. Until recently, however, we didn't know their human identities were, and this is where the key spin-off game comes back into play to mess with everyone's heads. You see, back after the Keyblade War, there were 2 other dandelions of specific note, Lauriam and Alrena. Now, again, this is incredibly recent information, so I don't have much, but we know that they survived the war by fleeing to the other world with the rest of the dandelions, and that Lauriam served as one of the 5 replacements for the council masters that fell in the war. We also know that he's looking for his younger sister, Strelitzia, who was supposed to be among the dandelions, and he asked for Alrena's help in that matter. Strelitzia, she kinda got the short end of the stick, so that subplot is probably not gonna end very happy for Lauriam. Regardless, somehow, like Ventus, they wound up at least close to the present day, losing their hearts and becoming nobodies. Under their new identities, they became the 2 central rebellious figures inside the organization, which when you consider there's 2 of them versus 11 other members, heck, 12 other members, that's pretty ballsy. Marluxia is, for some reason, made Lord of Castle Oblivion, and he manipulates that position as best he can to put him in place to usurp Xemnas. Larxene, and I know I'm technically pronouncing that wrong, but Larxene is a stupid name and Larxene sounds way better, serves as Marluxia's assistant for the most part, doing her part to taunt Sora and plant doubt in his mind to make him more pliable to the rebels' cause. Unfortunately for the two, a series of double crosses from Vexen and Axel as well as Sora's unpredictable nature end up throwing a wrench in their plans to use Naminé's memory scrubbing to their advantage. When they lose control of Naminé thanks to Axel's interference, Larxene attempts to kill Sora outright, but it's instead killed in return, and Marluxia isn't far behind when, after an extended battle, he's destroyed by Sora. Why these two tried to overthrow Xemnas is never quite revealed. There's some lip service to them being too arrogant, but it's definitely interesting how they're the only 2 nobodies that we see actively do not want hearts, but other than that, we've got nothing. Maybe we'll learn more when More of Key is released or when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, but until then it remains a mystery. Saix is an interesting figure. He's the 7th member of the organization to be recruited, but serves as its second in command, which is odd considering you'd think one of the original 6 would be closer to Xemnas. His human counterpart Isa, which I can't decide to pronounce Isa or Isa, so that's on me, was best friends with Lee when they were kids, and even back then he was a stickler for rules and punctuality, though certainly more playful than he eventually became as a nobody. After becoming part of the organization, he serves as the main distributor of orders and commands, which is what leaves Xemnas time to plan and scheme. Thanks to this, during most of 358 Days Over 2, he's the primary mission giver for Roxas and the rest of the organization members, meaning you get to see a whole lot of his face and hear a whole lot of his derisive attitude. This also means he was the one to order Axel to infiltrate Castle Oblivion and snuff out the rebellious elements that got sent there. When Axel begins befriending Roxas and Xion, it causes a rift to form between him and Saïx. He does what he can to stop Roxas from leaving during the whole Xion incident, mostly by throwing down fisticuffs at the organization's door, but he's ultimately unsuccessful. His next big individual contribution to things is when he kidnaps Kairi from from Axel and rejects Sora's plea to join the darkness to find his friends during the war scene in Kingdom Hearts 2. And like most of the antagonists in Kingdom Hearts 2, he doesn't really do much. He shows up periodically to taunt Sora, to taunt Kairi, kinda gets in the way of her escape attempt but is batted aside by Riku, but ultimately he's just kind of a jerk through the majority of the game. I'd say Sora corners him, but really what happens is Sora walks into what seems to be Saïx's bedroom and raffle stomps him into next week. He could have left at any time, but I guess he had a sense of dramatic timing. Anyway, his last words are crying out to Kingdom Hearts for a heart of his own before fading into the darkness. He technically awakens with the rest of Ansem's apprentices, but he's dragged away by the young Xehanort and Xigbar to become part of the new Organization 13. Speaking of, Xigbar is the last character we'll be touching on, and the reason why relates to him being the most intricate. You see, back in his human life, unlike the rest of Ansem's apprentices, Braig was already kind of a tool, and if he wasn't outright evil, he was certainly skirting the lines of morality with how he carried himself. When the original Xehanort informed him of his plan to form the Keyblade, he willingly went along with his plan on the condition that he got to use a Keyblade. He plays an integral role in pushing Terra towards embracing darkness, but loses his eye in the process. He's also present during the final battle with the Keyblade, positioning himself as a distraction until Vanitas could arrive to play his part. After that, he got the hell out of Dodge and fled. When Terranort shows up at Radiant Garden, he's literally the first on the scene, and when Terranort is made one of Ansem the Wise's apprentices, Braig is the first to go about trying to recover Xehanort's memories, which I guess ultimately succeeds, even if it doesn't happen the way he intended it to. While he's technically the fourth to be turned into a nobody, his proximity to Xehanort and his schemes put him as the number 2 member of the organization, though that title doesn't really seem to come with any kind of authority. Again, like Saix, he doesn't seem to do too much, but he's a constant background presence among the organization, always sneaking and scheming and spying, and it's very likely that he's the most well-informed character in the entire cast. He does do some training with Roxas when he's still a rookie, taunts Sora when he started out in Kingdom Hearts 2, and summons a powerful Heartless in the Land of Dragons, but those aren't super relevant to the story. Even his death is just a minor setback, as at this point he's more than aware that he'll be fine, so when Sora kills as nobody, he just rolls with it by jurying Sora. Reforming as Braig, he helps young Xehanort collect Iza and form the new Organization 13. He also shows up to directly influence Sora's Mark of Mastery so that Xehanort can possess him, taking a leading role in manipulating Sora. He retreats with the rest of the organization and will more than likely be one of the key players in Kingdom Hearts 3's plotline. Well, there you have it. Every member of Organization 13 has been covered. I hope this has come to help you understand at least who these people are and where they stand in relation to Kingdom Hearts 3's narrative. Many of these characters have probably been rolled into the new organization, though at the present the only confirmed members of it are Xehanort, Xemnas, Ansem Seeker of Darkness, Braig, and Iza, though from what we can see in the trailers, it's very likely that Marluxia, Larxene, Demyx, and Vanitas are also among their numbers. At the same time, there's also a lot we don't know about this new organization, so we'll have to wait and see. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you do, remember to click that bell to get the actual notifications YouTube should send you with its subscriptions. If you think I missed something vital or want to discuss something with fellow fans of the series, leave a comment down below. Consider also becoming a member on my channel by clicking the join button on the YouTube gaming link that I have, so you can get a nifty little icon next to your name every time you comment on one of my chats while I stream. And if you want to support this channel, please check out my Patreon. For $1 or more, you get access to the Team Frostbite Discord server where critics and fans alike like to mingle. A loving shout out to each and every one of my current patrons who help keep this little channel afloat. Without you guys lighting the proverbial torch under my rear, nothing would ever get done, I swear. That's all for now. If everything goes right, the final installment is actually going to be a live stream here on my channel leading into the release of Kingdom Hearts 3 tonight, before the game finally drops. And it's mostly to cover characters that aren't easily categorized or might only play minor roles in the future installments of the franchise. You could call it miscellaneous, but I prefer mellifluous. Catch you on the flip side.